It's time now for the 360 round. So let's bring in our panel to discuss the latest in the crypto space. Joining us right now, Cory Klippsten, the CEO of Swan Bitcoin, and Kyle Chasse, the chairman of MV Global and the founder of Paid Network. Thank you both for being with us today. Let's just kick it off by starting about some of this weakness that we've seen, particularly Monday's sell-off. Cory, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, this is just short-term machinations. Not really that worried about it. I think a lot of people got bullish about the price pump late last week up to 116, 117 in Bitcoin and thought that maybe we were ready to make a run up to new all-time highs above 125. And they placed a lot of levered longs, and it was easy pickings for the shorts to take them out. But I think, just zoom out. It's really not a big deal.
And are you in agreement with that, Kyle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cory nailed it. I did a whole show on this. It was a bunch of liquidations, leverage longs. Another thing, too, to look at, I always look at the first thing I look at whenever you have negative outflows from the ETFs, which we saw the past few days, both on Ethereum and Bitcoin. This is the first thing I look at is the CME basis trade, where these large hedge funds who are trading tens or hundreds of billions of dollars are looking for delta neutral strategies. And so oftentimes they do this CME basis trade if the basis premium is high enough to significantly outperform the risk-free rate, which is short-term treasuries and things like that. And what you notice is on the days when we have these sell-offs in ETFs, usually that basis trade, it starts to unwind. And that's where you normally see these outflows. So fundamentally, we're still in a very good place. Like Cory said, I mean, we're only down 8.5% from all-time highs on Bitcoin right now. And in bull market, this is par for course.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Bitcoin has had some recovery. We're up above 113,000 right now. But I remember Monday after that sell-off, seeing some of these headlines that it was the biggest liquidation wave we'd seen since March. Cory, for you, is it just are we in a correction phase? Is that fair to say?
I don't think so at all. I think you just had a rate cut, and you have people's kind of natural expectations that cycles are going to be the same until we see one that's different. And since we've had bull market peaks in 2013, 2017, 2021, it's another 4 years. And I think that's probably base case is that we see another run, toward the end of the year here. It's certainly something that I have to take into consideration, just planning my own family and business finances and corporate decisions and things like that. And, cycles ain't dead until they're dead. So I kind of still expect that we have a nice run here through the end of the year.
All right, Kyle, and so with that said, having seen how prices behaved in the wake of the Fed rate cut decision and knowing that we potentially have one coming again in October, what are your expectations for performance?
Well, there's a lot of macro tailwinds, the rate cuts being one of them. We still expect 3 more cuts this year, so expect additional 75 basis points by the end of the year. This is one way of a kind of forward-looking easing conditions. Jerome Powell has been pretty clear on the direction he thinks that this CPI, which has been sticky right around 2.9%, is a potentially one-off kind of increase. And so that is in our favor for the liquidity conditions. And, there was a really huge executive order from the Trump administration in August, directing retirement funds to be able to allow to go and buy Bitcoin. And that's, between some numbers, a $9 to $12 trillion market. And if just 1% of that flow comes into our market, and I don't think it's going to do it in this year necessarily, but it'll start maybe this year and well into next year. We can see as much potentially inflows. Just 1% of that would be almost as much as the entire Bitcoin ETF inflows have brought us since the inception.
And Kyle, building off of what you just said there, with some of these regulatory wins that we've seen and some of this commentary from the administration, how important is that to the broader adoption of cryptocurrency and continuing to see prices rise?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the broad crypto adoption is staggering. I mean, I do shows on this every single day on my YouTube channel, and I make them because if you're only looking at the charts and you're paying attention to the price of Bitcoin and you're saying, oh, well, equities are outperforming Bitcoin right now, and maybe even gold is too, and that's not historically how things have been, especially in bull markets, you can really get distracted from the actual adoption that's happening right now. We're seeing, equities and stock markets being tokenized all over the world. You're seeing all the biggest institutions implementing crypto trading into the infrastructure. And we're seeing the biggest push America has ever seen the new chair of the SEC, Paul Atkins, is a very very forward-looking when he says how we're trying to position the SEC and the CFTC as a very pro-crypto regulator kind of governance board, wanting, in fact, by the end of the year to implement essentially a kind of passage for new crypto startups to not have to bear the burden of the prior administration, Gary Gensler, giving us essentially a fast track and a clear lane ahead to innovate and build. So, it's never been a more optimistic time for the crypto industry to evolve. And, unlike the wake of 2022 and FTX collapse that scared everyone, now you have everyone, including the president of the United States, including all the biggest chairs, executives, politicians that are all pro-crypto. So the tailwinds are enormous.
All right, and Cory, last question to you. How has this increased institutional adoption changed the crypto sector on the whole? We've seen ETF inflows double just this year. Private equity now like 43% invested in digital assets. How is that changing the landscape?
Yeah, so structurally, the biggest change that's happened in many years was the launch of the ETFs in January of 2024. And basically what this meant is that instead of battling it out on kind of the crypto exchanges, crypto casinos for that first purchase, which is the world that we were in from, say, 2017 with the ICOs all the way through 2023 with $100 billion of altcoin VC money spent marketing a better Bitcoin. Now it's just kind of accepted, as you can see in your Chiron that's been on the screen most of this segment. It's Bitcoin and crypto, or in many cases, Bitcoin not crypto. And so they've just separated into two different asset classes, and people understand that Bitcoin actually is sound money. And this seems pretty well accepted by the markets, the media, regulators, that these are different things, and that the whole non-Bitcoin crypto world is kind of centrally controlled, has management teams, has roadmaps, makes decisions, and people kind of buy them like they buy tech stocks. So it's just a very, very different category. And when you think market structure and how investors encounter this, now they're much more often getting their first Bitcoin price exposure in their brokerage account. They're getting it through an ETF, or they're getting it by owning a share of MicroStrategy or one of the other Bitcoin treasury companies. And then they're going deeper down the rabbit hole after they hit something like 1% of Bitcoin price exposure in their liquid portfolio. So that's kind of the difference. It used to be kind of Bitcoin fighting it out with crypto, and now you have a much cleaner, much more high signal top of funnel where at least Larry Fink, Abby Johnson, and Michael Saylor are telling the truth about Bitcoin instead of trying to slander it and sell their printed out of thin air altcoins. So it's much cleaner and much easier story for people to get into Bitcoin and not get sidetracked now.
I want to thank you both for being with us today to talk all things cryptocurrency. Cory Klippsten from Swan Bitcoin and Kyle Chasse from MV Global and Paid Network. Thank you both.